Hogyan függ össze az étel íze az oktatásunkkal? Regenerálható-e a kíváncsiságunk ugyanúgy, mint a talaj? Üdvözlöm a nézőket és hallgatókat, Szabó Tünde vagyok, az Átlátszó erdélyi újságírója. Idén a Berta Alapítvány ösztöndíjasaként a biodiverzitás, az egészséges és fenntartható élelmiszertermelés, a klímaválság és a közpénz összefüggéseivel foglalkozom. Videóinterjúkkal is kísérletezünk, írjátok meg YouTube kommentben, hogy inkább nézitek, vagy inkább hallgatjátok a beszélgetéseinket. És ha tetszenek ezek a földszagú beszélgetések, támogassátok az Átlátszó Erdélyt az átlátszó.ro támogatás oldalán, vagy a YouTube-on szuperköszönettel. Szántsunk, vagy ne szántsunk? Kik lesznek a jövő gazdái, és tapasztalunk-e majd éhínséget Európában? Június végén ezekről beszélgettem a hollandiai Mark Siepman trénerrel a kalotaszegi Magyarókerekén, ahol Mark nagyon is kézzelfogható módon vezette be az érdeklődő gazdákat és a fenntartható gazdálkodás iránt érdeklődőket a termőföld izgalmas életébe. Mark már felnőtt fejjel lelkes amatőrként vetette bele magát a talaj tanulmányozásába. Könyveket fordított ebben a témában, és most írja róla a sajátját. Volt ugyan nagyobb kertje, de évekkel ezelőtt felhagyott a gazdálkodással, mivel sokat utazik. A képzésein nem csak az ismereteket, hanem a lelkesedését is hatékonyan át tudja adni. Megtudtuk, miből áll a talaj, hogy az ott élő élőlények hogyan alkalmazkodnak folyamatosan a környezeti változásokhoz, és ezért miért nem jó bolygatni a talajt. Meg azt is, hogy milyen észvesztő ritmusban veszítjük a termőföldet, de a talaj kizsigerelése visszafordítható. De addig még átélünk néhány sokkot, állítja Mark, akivel a sokkoló adatokról kezdtünk beszélgetni. Például, hogy az ipari mezőgazdaság legalább 8 kalóriányi energiával termel meg 1 kalóriát adó élelmiszert, és ez nem fenntartható. Markkal angolul beszélgettem, amely egyikünknek sem anyanyelve. Előre is elnézést a néhol helytelen fogalmazásért. A YouTube-on a beszélgetés magyar felirattal követhető. Vágjunk is bele!
We think that humans are most visible, and plants, of course, on the earth. You said that plants make up the 83% of the whole biomass of the earth.
Correct, yeah.
While humans, 0.01%.
0.01, yeah, correct. Yeah, that's not much.
And all of the animals?
0.47. Almost a half a percent.
Together with humans?
Yeah, humans are included in that. The biomass of land mammals, there you see that about 37% of all land mammals is human, which is quite a lot, but 60% of all land mammals is domesticated by humans. So that means that only 3% of all land mammals is still wild, undomesticated. So that for me is quite shocking. Yeah. So industrial agriculture that uses most of the land only feeds 30% of humans, but only through meat. So they don't produce direct food we eat. That's done by small farmers all over the world. And that's about 70% of the humans that are fed by small farmers.
This is quite a recent data.
Yes, Vandana Shiva writes about it in Who Feeds the World. Yeah. They feed animals and they produce a bit of biomass for biofuels, but they are not feeding the world as they are claiming. They are feeding animals.
To feed small
percentages of humans. So actually they cause hunger in the world because there's not enough land left for small farms to produce food. But we produce now for about 14 billion people. So there is enough food. But we throw away 30 to maybe 50% of the food we produce.
Almost 50%.
Yeah, between 30 and 50, they're not agreed upon it, but it's a lot. So almost half the food we produce is wasted somewhere in the chain. And if we stop doing that and we stop doing industrial agriculture, we would still have enough food to feed everyone. But within the current system, there are still a billion people who go hungry. And there's no excuse for that. The richer the country is, the more industrial farming there is. Mm-hmm. Because it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of energy. You have to put about 8 calories of energy in the food system to get 1 calorie out. It's an enormous waste, yeah. So a poor country can't sustain that. You have to have a food system in which you put in less calories than you get out of it, or else you'll die. It's as simple as that. There's no animal on earth that is capable of putting more energy in finding food and getting out of it. It's impossible. But we can do that by using fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. So we're cheating. But it's about to end. We don't know when, but there comes a moment when there will be no more fossil fuels. And then we'll have a problem.
The other shocking data that you told us today was that 23 billion tons of soil is disappearing each year. How can somebody imagine this?
Well, I can't.
How was this measured then?
You can measure the thickness of the topsoil. And you can calculate the amount of topsoil you are losing. So, and you know how big the area we are using for agriculture is. So you can calculate it in that way. And we are losing topsoil at an enormous speed. And it's just not sustainable. If we continue in this way, there would be no topsoil left in 30 years.
In 30 years?
Yeah. If the soil is bare, there is soil erosion. It's either wind erosion or water erosion, but it's happening. And we are losing the soils at a breakneck speed.
And this topsoil that we lose ends up in the oceans?
Yeah, in the oceans. In places we don't get to them. So sometimes we lose topsoils to another country. That's, yeah, it's not good, but it's less worse.
You stated that the soil needs our help.
I think so, yeah.
How can we help soil, mainly in a region like ours, which is traditionally an intense tillage agriculture region?
Yeah, well, if you continue doing normal agriculture, you always end up with desert. So if you have a desert, which is the extreme ultimate result, then you have to bring back the plants and trees to desertify, to de-desertify the soil. And it takes a lot of biomass to do that. So a desert has no organic materials. And by planting something, you add organic materials to it. Actually, the plants do that.
How can we plant anything in the desert?
Well, we need systems that help trees to establish themselves, and therefore they need water. So there are products we have in the Netherlands, for instance, the water box, which is a box in which you plant a tree and it has enough water to develop enough and to shade out the soil to help itself grow, and it should become a big tree in time. And they grow much faster than in our cold climate. So within 10 years you have an enormous forest if it will grow.
Okay, but so, can you put it in a deserted soil?
Yes. Plants and trees are amazingly good at surviving. But yeah, if there is no water, there will be no trees and plants. And if we use the right trees that are indigenous in these regions, and plants that are indigenous in these regions, then we can get the biodiversity that comes with these forests also back. So there are many tree planting projects that lasted decades. And well, you see that the plants come back, the trees come back, but also the animals come back and the water comes back. So little streams start streaming and the rivers come back, and everything that was lost comes back just by adding plants and trees. So that's an extreme example, but we have to keep that in mind for our moderate climate places in which we do not have deserts per se, but it's close to it sometimes.
You say that if we plant indigenous plants, or should we start with trees? On this?
I don't know, both I think. The trees give shade to the plants, and the plants, they help making the soil contain more water. They produce biomass, it's added to the soil, which helps the trees grow. So I think it's end-end. And then you get the natural succession going. And then ultimately a forest will be there that is very capable of growing on its own. It can take a punch.
The way we do agriculture here in Transylvania, whether it's in industrial scale or small farmers, it's still intense agriculture.
Yeah.
So actually the way we grow plants to feed ourselves, we enhance the desertification.
In some way or another, yes. Yeah. There's of course a big spectrum. There's the extreme of big machines plowing, using artificial fertilizers and pesticides. And there's also the small scale gardeners tilling just a little bit and helping seeds grow and caring for them. And yeah, there's of course a big difference between these two. But if we can find ways in which we can use perennial plants and trees and combine them with annuals in which they help each other by shading each other out, keeping the landscape moist, and making sure the rain keeps coming in a healthy way and not just months of drought and then sudden enormous pourings of rain. If we can do that, we are regenerating. And I think it's really possible to regenerate the earth and meanwhile have food for ourselves. We now use, for 90% of our food, we just use 17 different plants. So we use not much of the biodiversity there is. There are at least 25,000 edible plants on this planet, but we don't use them. So if we start using different plants, learn how to eat them, learn how to cook them, what we can do, maybe they are healthy in other ways for us. If we can learn that in our communities, we are really bringing back biodiversity and also the health in ourselves, because we need that biodiversity to be healthy. And I think we often forget that. The biodiversity is just something nice to look at and, oh, nice bird, something like that. But it's not that. All the problems we are experiencing now are because we are lacking the biodiversity that can solve the problems we are having. I think the problem is that we are trying to count the biodiversity. This much of this much of that. But in fact, real true biodiversity is uncountable. If you have already 1 billion bacteria in 1 teaspoon of soil, that means there are immeasurable amounts of bacteria and also fungi and protozoa and all the other stuff that we just can't see, but is there. And that is the true biodiversity we need. We live on a microbial world. 83% of all biomass is plant or tree or algae or cyanobacteria. So that's the organisms that are capable of photosynthesis. But almost 13% is bacterial. So that means that after those two groups, there's only 5% left for all other life on Earth. And all animals is less than 0.5%, of which 70% is insects. So I think that's part of the problem, that most of the biodiversity we depend on is invisible to us. Probably, according to a new study, 59% of all biodiversity lives in the soil, at least part-time. So that means that what we see here is just a tip of the iceberg.
And that's why it's important not to disturb very much the soil with traditional tillage.
Well, the importance of biodiversity lies in the capacity of organisms to have relationships. So if you have a soil, there are billions upon billions of organisms in just a square meter. But these organisms all find a way to live together by eating each other or helping each other or signaling each other. There are always relationships between these organisms. And the moment you start tilling the soil, you destroy all of most of these relationships. So a healthy soil is a self-organizing system that can get all the nutrients and water to the plant in time, in the right amounts, in the right form. While a disturbed soil is incapable of doing that. So you create chaos. You destroy the relationships, and if there are no relationships, it's chaos. So from that, not much good can come. So if we are capable of not tilling the soil and still produce food, we can increase biodiversity enormously. And if we have enough biodiversity, I think 99% of all our problems will be gone. From tiny problems like slugs and snails in the garden to really big problems like climate change.
And through this biodiversity, we got even healthier food, if I understood you correctly.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, there is an enormous amount of organisms that is living together with plants, and the plants actively ask these organisms to bring certain nutrients. So they exudate carbon compounds, and there are probably thousands of different compounds that plants exudate, and they attract bacteria and fungi and protozoa and other animals and organisms that make sure that the nutrients are in a form that the plants can take up, that they can use to grow. And that's also in the benefit of the soil life, because they depend on the plants to be there, because they are capable of photosynthesis, and the soil life rarely is. So we need the plants, but the plants need the soil life, and the soil life needs the plants. It's all interdependent. And if you take out just one part of it, the whole system collapses. And that is what we often do in agriculture. We leave soils bare for months, so there's no photosynthesis, which means the soil life has no energy. The carbon is just disappearing from the soils. And if there's no carbon, there's no soil life, and the soil structure collapses. So plant roots can find it harder to penetrate the soil. Water can penetrate the soil, so it runs off, So you get the soil erosion, in which we are losing the soils. And also water is not entering the soil, so you get droughts. And we lose even more plants. So it's a downward spiral. Yeah. Well, if we are truly regenerative, we can have an upward spiral in which biodiversity and the health of the systems get better each year, and also our own health increases. Because we are not separate of what we call nature, of what we call the environment. We are nature, and we are an intrinsic part of our environment. And if we think we are separate of it, well, we can do anything to it and think we are invulnerable, but we are not.
How can we decide which vegetable is healthier? Because you illustrated today that if it's partly eaten by some other animal, then it's probably healthier than if it's whole, big and shiny and colorful.
Yeah. So if you have I don't know, greenhouse, and it's completely isolated, and you have plants in there, and you water them, and you give them food, and then they have no reason to have to produce antioxidants, for instance. So these antioxidants, they should be in the plant, but they are not. And if you eat the plant, then you don't get the antioxidants in your body either. And if you don't have the antioxidants, the free radicals will ravage your body. So if you have a plant that is nibbled on by an insect or a slug or a snail, the plant starts producing these antioxidants, and they are very bitter. So the slugs don't like them. So they go to the next plant who doesn't have them, and we don't like bitter neither. But that's just something that is cultivated. 100 years ago, we had many bitter plants, and we were much healthier then. And we can learn to like bitter plants now too, because every 10 days you get new taste buds. So if you taste something you don't like up to 5 times, you will probably like it by then. And it's, of course, especially true for children. If you learn to eat something young, you will like it later too, most of the time. So I think it's important that we learn to see that plants that are partially eaten by an insect or a slug or a snail is not bad. It's actually better than the plants that are perfectly shiny and untouched. If a plant gets ravaged and there's nothing left, well, it was probably not healthy for us either, because it lacked the nutrients and the phytonutrients that plants need to keep the slugs and snails at bay, or the insects. So that's not a real problem. It's really a solution, but most gardeners don't see it that way.
Because most consumers don't see it that way, so they cannot sell to consumers.
No, it's impossible. As a plant that's eaten, and even a half-eaten plant is not something that consumers are likely to buy. Although there are new types of consumers, they buy the leftovers, the plants that really don't look good, and make something out of it. Be it something fermented, for example, or maybe soup, or things you don't see that the plant was not perfect. And that way we can lessen the food waste also.
And that presumes that we need to shorten very much the transportation of food, because a partly eaten food or partly missing vegetable starts to decompose if we transport it.
Correct,
for a
yeah.
long time.
But it's a good point you make, because the transportation of food is a problem in and of itself. The average food is transported over 2,000 kilometers before it's on your plate. It's a really long distance. So it's often picked way before it's ripe and then transported, and then it's sort of ripe when it arrives. But yeah, in an extreme example, if you have corn, for example, or maize, you should actually eat that within 15 minutes. So you should first boil your water, then harvest your corn and boil it, and then eat it, because the nutrients are lost very quickly. So within transportation, a lot of nutrients are lost. So that's one thing. And also domestication is a real problem, because, like I said, we don't like the bitter taste. So they are lost from our foods, and with it, the health they bring. And they are what is increased is the amount of sugars. So we get lots and lots and lots of calories, but very little nutrients. So even if you eat all you can, you're still not getting enough nutrients. So they call this hidden hunger. So you can be really fat and still have hunger.
Like physically, you still feel something like hunger?
Yeah, also, yeah. I don't know if you recognize this, but sometimes you eat something and you're quite full and you think, yeah, I'm full. And it was not much. And other times you keep eating and you're still not full. And so
then eating becomes an addiction.
Yeah, some things are indeed addictive, and sugar is the most addictive thing we can think of. It's more addictive than cocaine. So if there is enough sugar in your food, yeah, you just keep eating. And it's all converted to fat, so it's not healthy.
We should tell good stories about eating healthier, accepting the bitterness of much more plants that we are eating now. This is one way to cultivate our taste and our health. Then probably hopefully this would be a market force that drives the agricultures to not to waste so much food, not to waste the soil. Do you think there are policies like subsidies that can drive farmers from farming big, shiny, whole plants to smaller, bitter, but healthier plants?
Yes. Yeah, it's the other way around now. You get subsidized to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's a real problem. So if you stop subsidizing the big farms and start subsidizing the little farms, yeah, I think there would be more. And that's exactly what we need, because the small farms are feeding the world. But yeah, who is making the policy? Ultimately it's the big industries. The pharmaceutical industry is of course large, but it's also connected to the pesticide industry. That's connected to the genetical engineering industries. And it's connected to the artificial fertilizer industries. And they all make billions upon billions of dollars. And the small farmers, yeah, that's just peanuts. So, yeah, I think subsidies could do wonders. But I don't know if we have the power to bring that about. I believe that ultimately food and economics should be separate. If you add economics to food, everything goes wrong.
To be more precise, we should take off profit from food?
For example, yeah. Profits from food is a bit strange. We all need to eat. So why make it scarce while it's abundant. There is an abundance of food. It's everywhere, but not everyone has access to it. So I don't believe that that's a good idea. And if we decapitalize food, and we decapitalize water, and we decapitalize the air we breathe, and everything we need to live, I even think that all people should be able to live for free in a house or any other shelter. Everything that is needed by everyone should be free. I know it's radical, but it's how I think. I also think that knowledge about these things should be free. They should not be capitalized. So that's why I always give everything I know for free. And I always hope to get enough donations to live. And for the last 12 years that worked fine. But I'm also writing a book now about these topics, and I also want to bring it out for free, because I don't think that I should profit from ideas that were not entirely mine. I also lend ideas that are thousands of years old, and some ideas people have worked on for decades to find a solution, and I'm just writing that in 1 minute. And okay, I've worked 4 years on the book, but who am I to say that it's worth a specific amount? Some people might be able to pay for it, and some not. And I could not forgive myself if some people could not buy it for that reason, or not go to any of my courses for that reason. So, and the same goes for food and water and all the other things everyone needs. Yeah.
Our taste changes, and we can direct that change.
Mm-hmm.
You think that knowledge is free and knowledge is learnable, we can study it. But you also said during this day that you do not believe in education.
No, education is a strange thing. In the current system, the child is seen as an empty vessel, and you just have to pour some knowledge in it, and then it's good to go, you know. But it doesn't work that way. Children are like sponges, and they want to know everything. And by teaching them the things we want them to know, we actually stop them from being a sponge. They stop being interested in the complexities of life, and they get distracted by stupid things. So I think that every child is a learning machine. It just wants to learn. And I think education has the opposite effect. It doesn't help people learn. It stops them from learning. Learning is a lifelong process.
Actually, my generation's experience in school was that school actually killed curiosity.
Yeah, and it also kills creativity. There was a NASA research, and it turned out that 98% of all children going to school were creative geniuses. And by the time they got out of school, it was just 2%. That's not what we need. We need creativity. We need children that are eager to learn. So, no, I'm not a big fan of education, which is strange because I educate people, but I only want to teach people who are willing to learn. Mm-hmm. And it's all about curiosity. I can give some tools, I can give some insights, I can give some little knowledge maybe, or just a little, it's just things that are nice to know but not really important. But yeah, to get people interested again in the complexities of life, and then they have to learn themselves all the other things, because what I tell them is just a tiny bit of it. But I try to give a sort of overview, a big picture of the complexities of how everything is connected, and they have to fill in the blanks for themselves. That would take me a lifetime too, to fill in all the blanks.
Curiosity also can be regenerated as soil?
Well, mine was, so I think it can, yeah. Yeah.
And what does it take?
Yeah, I think it just takes one spark. For me, I did a permaculture course in 2009, and I forget most of it, but one thing, it just landed that the soil is so immensely important, but I knew absolutely nothing about it. So I wanted to learn about the soil, and I found it enormously interesting, especially because no one was interested in it. And so I started learning more, and I translated 3 books about it, and now I'm writing a book, and yeah, I'm giving lectures and courses, and every day I learn new things that I can add to the story and makes it more interesting for me. All my life I've been not very interested in just loose facts. I wanted to know the connections between those facts as far as the facts exist. And it was always about seeing the connections, and every day, every year I learn more about connections, and so that's, for me, that's inspiring and enough to keep me going. And the best way for me to learn is to try to explain to other people. So only if you can explain it to other people, then you truly understand it. And that's because every time you explain it, you see more connections, and you can connect them and then explain that to other people, and yeah, the whole story begins to live. And I think that's one of the problems with education in the classic sense, is that everything is compartmentalized. So you get the languages and
the different subjects.
Algebra. Yeah, exactly. And I think that should be forbidden. If you put it into loose subjects, it's not interesting. But if you put all the subjects together, it becomes interesting. And that's something I found. I lost interest in school, and then I put it all these subjects together, and I thought, oh, it is interesting. I didn't know that. So biology is interesting, but you need to know how it connects to the physics of the world, and you need to know how it connects to the cosmology, and you need to know how it connects to the soil and to everything else. And boom, it blows my mind how beautiful it all is. But I never had that feeling in school. I was bored out of my mind.
That's the majority of us.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Farmers who were eroded by traditional education and who are hardly make a living, so small farmers, can get that spark which converts them from tillage agriculture to non-till agriculture.
Yeah, I think it's a process. I don't think it's wise that you go from tillage to non-tillage just like that. So I think it's better to just say, well, this year I won't till this part, and when that's the plants are growing well, I'll do the next part, and then the next, and then the next. Because if you stop tillage, there's a drop in the amount of food you can produce. And it takes a few years before it can reach the old level. So if you do it cold turkey, I think you'll probably go bankrupt. But there is another way. If you want to go cold turkey, you have to have a community around you. So community supported agriculture can help farmers convert to a new type of system, actually using the money of the community. And it's okay if you have less produce for a few years. And then the community will support that. And in the end, production will be at the old level and can get even higher, especially when the community helps with planting and caring for the soil and doing the intensive work. Because they say that the industrial farming is the most effective way of producing food.
Yeah, that's the ideology.
Yeah, but I already said you put more energy in it than you get out. But using the community, you can produce systems in which you put a lot of human energy in it, but not so much fossil energy in it. And you can really produce more food that way. But you need more people on the land. So it's efficient in the way you have not many farmers, but it's not efficient in the way you use your energy. So using the human energy has multiple advantages. Yeah. So one is you use less fossil energy. People are connecting with each other and with the plants and with the soil. And if you connect with the soil, there are microbes in them that actually make you happy. Immensely important that we feel that connection with life, with each other, with ourselves. We've lost connection to ourselves too. And then I think that's the only way we can be healthy, both physically as mentally. And then, yeah, if we are happy and healthy, maybe the planet can be happy and healthy too.
How do you see the future of farming and the future farmers?
I think the future farmers are diverse. There are many more farmers, and they are by definition small-scale farmers. I think that large-scale farming is impossible to get sustainable. If you look at the advantages of having a small-scale farm, with the community building, the soil building, the health building, and also getting more nutrient-rich food from it, I think it's a no-brainer. But it's something we have to decide upon, and there's a limit to the amount of education we can give. We can give some ideas, some insights, we can give some knowledge, but ultimately it has to come from ourselves. We have to be willing to change, and change is really hard. It's something humans can't do unless it comes from the inside. And the word apocalypse, well, we live in apocalyptic times, but apocalypse means that everything comes to the surface. So the things that were already there, people are starting to see it. And when you see what is truly happening, then it becomes easier to change, to have an intrinsic motivation to change. And my hope is that people are willing to change because they are beginning to see what is truly happening. And yeah, I think it all starts with seeing and daring to see what is happening. And also, and that's what I try to do, seeing the solutions. It's not all bad what is happening. There are many things that are also important, and yeah, they need to happen before the good things can happen. And it's not always nice and oh, jolly. Yeah, some bad things need to happen before the good things can start to happen.
Do you think there will be more intensive or extensive famine in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, famine in the context of true hunger or the hidden hunger.
The true hunger.
True hunger. It's hard to say, but I think it's truly possible. that even in rich countries or relatively rich countries, and maybe even especially the rich countries, because we are destroying the soils, it's possible. If we destroy our soils, slip of the tongue. If we destroy our soils, if you are live in a rich country, they will just import the same food, and the people won't notice. If you're in a poor country, then that doesn't happen, and you will notice. So the rich countries will probably notice last, and they are causing the problems. So this is something that needs our attention. That's maybe something I'm trying to do, raising the red flag from guys, we are causing so much problems, and we can also be the solution. We don't have to be the problem. There are many solutions, and the solutions are in the soil. That's just my humble opinion.
Thank you for sharing it.